questions to ask throughout a campaign with the confidence rising. I told JC, Nate and Rich that good times are coming, no need for deep diving. Fan Cam's reactions, watch along to the pride of London thriving. The Eagles of South stay flying. Keep your eyes on us, we ain't hiding.
Thought to just play that again still. Big up everyone. Like I said, we've got something a little different. Apologies for the delay to the stream. Our guest is actually having technical issues at the minute, but we thought we'll get started and we'll chat to you anyway instead of keeping you waiting. And then once he's in, we can start discussing his book. My brother, Nate, how are you doing, my friend?
Yes, brother. All good, all good. Still kind of living in a fantasy world. I don't think last night happened. I think I must be in a parallel universe because the words England and champions don't go together in football. But we know what happened yesterday. You saw the reactions. You saw the emotions. You saw the banter. It's a lovely feeling, Rich. Now we move to Friday, but we'll talk about the book today because the snippets that we've been talking about in our GC, we've got some things to talk about. It's looking really interesting.
100%. And the beautiful thing about this book, obviously, it covers all Premier League teams as well. Obviously, once our guest arrives, he can explain that in full detail. You know, and it can be purchased on all platforms and Kindle form and hardback as well. But we'll leave our guest to promote that. And yeah, so let's talk about yesterday, obviously, in a little bit more detail up until our guest comes in. What surprised you the most about England's performance last night?
Clutch. Let's be real. Like, England don't do clutch performances, bruv. England start well and fade quick, as opposed to start fairly mild, grow into the game, take the lead, kind of shoot themselves in the foot, and then when it was needed, be the team that turned up on the day. Don't get me wrong, Germany had ample chances to bury England, predominantly before England scored their first goal. But reality is, if you don't take your chances, you don't win games of football. But it was just great to see that all the, ridiculous BS that you hear about in the kitchen, this, that, that's been put on the back burner because those women did the damn thing. They did what the men couldn't do. So, you know what I'm saying? If you're on this women don't belong in football business, your heroes, they flopped.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Slav Maguire, flopped. Class A Kane, flopped. So we'll see how they get on in November, but I'm just putting it out there. When they had their final at Wembley, they didn't get it done.
Yeah, they didn't manage the game anywhere near as well as the women did yesterday. And just the absolute scenes at full time, it was just unbelievable. And even like Chloe Kelly's reaction, that's just the passion. Like, naturally you see obviously the men always whip off their top, but she's just like, yeah, and that's just pure bridal joy and emotion, to actually win that to win. She's forever going to be known as the player who won the tournament for them, that scored the winning goal in a major final. That's mad. What dreams are made up of. Let's address those in the chat. Obviously, our brother Nate is saying here that if you haven't subbed already, what are you waiting for? We are 10 away, I believe now.
Yeah,
10 away from 1K.
We're near to the single-digit subscriber count, which is mad.
It's so crazy. The chip is in England. It arrived in Heathrow a couple of days back, so should arrive on my doorstep anytime soon. Big up CM, big up Brush in the car. Brush is obviously live at the moment with Kyle. Big up Solo from the Man United Agenda. Go sub to their channel as well, doing amazing content. David Lee, how you doing, my friend? Wait, what? To go?
No, it's in 10 to go, but 10
okay, go. Okay, I was thinking, raw. I was thinking, what's the gaffer done already?
United moving quick.
Oh, boy. Big up Creambone. I know obviously you're out there with Moss and Beanie Ween, I believe. Obviously down at the Emirates earlier on. Obviously, showing love to CM. Big up, Sean. Hey, Sean, we've missed you, you know. You don't call in anymore.
He called in for the watch along, bro. He was
wicked. All right, cool. I was thinking it's been a minute.
Yeah, no, he'll be on more regularly, but yeah, he's apparently he prefers us to back at the nest. Controversial.
Oh, well, we'll take the compliment.
100%, but I had to throw out there that we're not in competition with BOT.
Not in competition, nope. And as you see, we always invite them on as well. That's how we do. Creambo says still buzzing from yesterday. It literally tipped our women from the start. Yep. Remember, it wasn't the men. So different mentality in it. Massive mentality shift. Massive mentality shift. And you know what? Especially against the 8-time champions in Germany, especially with the fact that every final Germany have made it to, they've won. Hey, princess. And they did it. It was unbelievable. So big up the girls. This is life changing for these queens. Listen, 100%. David Lee laughed at me. I misinterpreted the comment. I'm sorry.
Nah, bro, you caught you slipping, but big up CM.
Badly. Slipping badly. Guys, listen. Oh, perfect timing. I believe we have got it all sorted. So listen, without further ado, we'd like to welcome our guest.
The main event himself.
And author. I'll let him promote his book. Stuart, how's it going?
Hey, so mate, it's after sorting this all out and like obviously my technological issues, I promised but to be nothing but the main event as you suggested.
Well, we're giving you a big build up, so don't disappoint us, mate. But it was a pleasure to have you on the channel.
No, thank you so much. Just for context, I'm Rich. I'm the one liaising with you through obviously email. This is one of my co-hosts, Nate, and stuff. Thank you for reaching out. We only started our journey a year ago, and for you to be able to recognize what we've done and to want to actually come on and talk about Palace. Thank you so much. What's the matter, sweetheart? Okay, I'm sorry. Stop blaming your sister for everything. All right. So we obviously really, really appreciate that. But we're going to give you the space now to start off with, before we go into some of the topics, to actually let the community know what your book is titled, what it's about, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, the book is called The Cornerstone Collection. It's 45 chapters, and every chapter is about a player and a player's story or the club's story intertwined with that player. And across those 45 chapters, it covers every team that's ever played Premier League football. So it's got all the clubs that have been there for a couple of seasons, all the clubs that have been there from the beginning. Teams have had highs and lows, and also just trying to get like different positions covered, like from goalies to forwards to defenders to midfielders, and try and cover the Premier League in a way that's more than just let's look at the Gerrards and let's look at the Henrys of the world. And there are some really good popular players in there, but I wanted to dig a bit deeper and take a look at teams and stories that don't normally get as much press as everyone else.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant. Two things. Firstly, we've stuck the link in the description where to go find the book. Also, I have discussed with Stuart. I'm going to get a copy, one for myself anyway, but I'm also going to get a copy on behalf of the channel, which we'll do as a giveaway at some point throughout the season. Oh, there we meet these girls. They always know when Daddy's live. So, on that note, so that I can mute, what got you into writing?
Well, I think one of the great sort of tragedies, if you want to call it that, over the years is the fact that, like, I am terrible at football. I cannot play it, and I would like to be better, but I'm just not. And so, watching football and being immersed in it and the culture and just sort of, I started writing about it from a young age and just obviously blogging has become so popular and fan sites and this and that. I've been writing now about football for about 10 years, and I was fortunate enough in a lifetime ago now to have some of my writing appear on a Liverpool official website when I was younger, and that just gave me a little bit of a kick on, and then just started doing as much as I can, and sort of like yourselves over the last 12 months is just taking as much in from the game and trying to give something back, even though, like, there's absolutely no chance you're ever going to catch me. Like, I did try coaching the once, it didn't go well. But so it's just one of these ways where you can just sort of interact with the game and a game that you love as well.
Yeah. So what inspired you to, well, you kind of touched on this. So I guess what we'll ask you next is, which club and player was the easiest and hardest to write about?
I think some of the clubs that you'd think are the hardest are the ones that are only there for a season, but they actually make it very easy because there's limited sort of data to go on. Like, this isn't a massive spoiler, but when you're picking Blackpool from 2010, I think it was, you're gonna pick Charlie Adam because there aren't that many other players you could select. There are there are a couple of intersections within that, but the ones that had very little data, you could go on them quite easily. But when you're looking at like a Palace or a Tottenham, some of those clubs that have had multiple players, and you go, okay, which are the stories that I want to see here? Because there's a lot of teams where you just go, there's not loads, with all due respect, there's not loads of players to pick from. Like Bournemouth, for example, they were, you've got a couple of choices there. Whereas with yourselves and others, there's loads of choices. So it's the ones where they've been in the Premier League for a couple of years, maybe not just one or two, but they hadn't really made the mark, or they hadn't really had the seasons that create those sorts of stories that you get with other teams.
Okay. I mean, it's funny that you mentioned Blackpool, because I think the one standout memory from their one and only season in the Premier League is how unlucky they were to be relegated on the final day away at Manchester United, I believe.
Yeah.
And obviously, Ian Holloway, who was their manager at the time, he would become our manager about 18 months later. Near enough 2 years later, really. And we've got fond memories of Ian Holloway because he was the manager who got us promoted through the haphazard manner of the playoffs, where you can't predict who's going to be in the top six and you can't predict who's not going to be in the top six. But I think what you're saying there is very true, because a lot of people have always said, don't know if Rich gets the same, but because I live in the Republic of Ireland, where it's predominantly Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal, to an extent, I'd say Tottenham, Man City and Chelsea. When you support a club like Crystal Palace, Leeds, or albeit Leeds are a big club, but still they don't have anywhere near the numbers as a Liverpool or Manchester United, knowing that you're a so-called niche fan in this country, people realize that, and you're not one of the pack that's trying to follow the big boys. For example, when Palace played United in, I think it was 18-19, and Van Aanholt scored that last-minute winner, I remember being in a pub full of Manchester United fans celebrating a 1-1 draw with Palace. Van Aanholt whips that ball into the back of the net, and I just lost all track of myself because I had been waiting decades to see us win at Old Trafford. It's been nothing but pain and misery and all sorts of slagging at school, and I just thought, you know what, sod it. I'm going all out, balls to the wall, let nothing loose. And all these United fans just stood there and went, you know what, fair play to him, because I never thought it would happen. And then we did it again the season after that. But with Blackpool, your Blackpools, your Swindons, who else was there?
Oldham.
Oldham Athletic. Well, yeah, we've got we've got history with them about 92, 93. Yeah, that hurt.
Oh no, that's very much in there as well.
The ill-fated lap of honor. But you look at the way some of these clubs have fallen off big time, and you're thinking, my God, imagine that could have been us had we not had some of the more careless owners. I mean, Ron Nodes is demonized by a lot of the fan base for his time. He was there for the Mark Bright, Ian Wright era. So he was chairman in that time, and he was the chairman at the start of the Premier League era. But then you look at Simon Jordan's tenure, and 2004 West Ham playoff final, one of the best days of my life. 9 months later away at Charlton, not great.
I think as well, as part of that, what I wanted to do, I wanted to focus on in the book is this idea that like the Premier League isn't the be all and end all. It's the hype, it's the money, it's this and that. But it's actually the 92. It's actually like you go from the top down. It's the pyramid is what makes English football great, rather than just you're in the top 20 and that's it. And it's like for a lot of the teams that I was talking about, it's so, not so much the getting to the Premier League or even competing in the Premier League. It's the journey to it.
Yeah, like Hull City and Swansea were in the fourth tier, and they rose up the ranks. But I think, but I will use ourselves as an example. Rich, you remember after relegation in 05, we got relegated away at Charlton. They still sing about that to this day, and the whole 9 yards of it. And I remember thinking at the time, okay, it sucks to be back in the champ, but it is what it is. 8 years later, we're in the Premier League. They're facing League One. So it's funny how football works, where they're talking about, well, we'll never be as bad as Palace and the whole lot, and they're still in League One. It's like, oh, funny how that turns about. Because this is our 10th year in the Prem. Not bad that, but as you say, Stuart, football's crazy like that, because a lot of people would have seen Portsmouth, for example, as a Premier League mainstay because they got to an FA Cup final, won an FA Cup final, can beat AC Milan in the Europa League. And you're looking at that going, how the hell have Pompey, little old Pompey way down on the south coast, beating AC Milan, one of the biggest clubs in European football? And you're thinking, well, that's the beauty of football, because go back when Pompey were promoted to the Premier League, a lot of people had written them off before a ball had been kicked, and that's famous across every team that comes up. If you're not necessarily the so-called establishment, so if you're not a Newcastle United, a Nottingham Forest, a Leeds United, you're expected to, they'll go straight back down. We got it. And I was like, how's that taste? What's that? Going down, are we? Going down, are we? I love the place to finish, man.
Even on the back of you saying Portsmouth, look at Wigan. They won the FA Cup and got relegated, unfortunately. And they're in League One as well, aren't they?
It's tough. Talking about like facing the European giants, you've got like a double-edged sword here of like Norwich beating Bayern Munich back in like 93, 94.
Yeah.
And Ipswich Town, who had 3 successive playoff defeats, get up to the Premier League, finish 5th, and then beat Inter Milan and get relegated in the same season. So it's just those rises and falls are all over the place. And one of the things that I wanted to try and do, especially as Palace, who've been in the Premier League a few times, is try and cover from the start to the end, to try and cover the whole thing. So it's like you've got different eras within the teams and within the Premier League itself, and trying to go through that and make sure that, yes, okay, I've managed to represent this club well here, even though it's maybe across 3 different players as opposed to just one player who's solidly that club.
Yeah. Rich, just quickly, let me touch on Creambone's comment to address why. Because I think we need to clarify. So, most people look at Ron Knowles' early tenure and say fair play to him. He gave Steve Coppell ample time to build that team that we got. But go towards the end of it, and Ron Knowles had lied to Mark Goldbridge. Or was it Mark Goldberg, sorry.
Goldberg,
Yeah, Goldberg, he bought the club, but apparently he had to borrow money off Ron Knowles to get the club, which put us in a financial mire. Simon Jordan then buys the club. Simon Jordan claims to have bought the ground, but Ron Knowles still owns the ground. We go back into administration and we're in an even bigger mess. So Ron Knowles, as much as he did well for us at the start, he became quite literally Mr. Burns in the eyes of many Palace fans, because we're thinking, here's someone that we thought was a genuine good bloke. And to be fair to him, invested a lot of his own fortune in the club at the very start of his tenure. Obviously, I think the biggest question mark on him was the ground share with Charlton. That was and Wimbledon, but Charlton was a bit more controversial, because with Wimbledon, they had nowhere else to go. With Charlton, it was like, really? They can't go play in Kent or something. They have to come play on our turf. Oh, mate. But that's why he's not really liked. And that's why some Palace fans sing some very blue-worded songs about Ron Knowles. But yeah, that's very creepy.
And such. Sure, I don't know if this question has been asked already. It's not part of the ones I had sent earlier. But what team do you support?
I'm a Liverpool fan.
Okay. We have a few United fans in the chat. Just bear that in mind.
I don't think it's in the friendlies at the back. It's fine. It's all good.
By the way, guys, if you've got any questions as well for Stuart, please put them in the chat. I'll put a star at them, and we could do like a Q&A at the end and such. let's go and talk about Palace. Now, you mentioned earlier about the fact that you wanted to cover different positions, and I put them in the thumbnail. The 4 players that you referenced, starting with Nigel Martin. What was it about Nigel Martin that you felt, you know what? Yeah, I need to get him in.
In a chapter itself, it's football is unique in the sense that like you can't be longevity. You can't have that longevity and necessarily be popular as well. The longer you go, the more of a chance you risk of like having the ending ruined. Stay too long. Maybe not be great. But Nigel Martin is loved at Palace, is loved at Leeds, and is loved at Everton. And he's just this kind of guy that is, not necessarily going to get his plaudits, but yeah, that's that's what part of what I wanted to do with the book as well, is just shine the light on someone that might not, because obviously he was like number 2 behind David Seaman. He's just never collar.
Oh, help!
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it was just one of those where, like, I just thought he summed up quite a few different eras and a few different clubs perfectly. So he's just a perfect sort of way to start it.
Yeah, no, Nigel Martin. You know what, Nigel Martin? I think before Speroni came, Nigel Martin would have been up there with Budgie, who's probably one of the best goalkeepers to ever play for the club. But because the modern generation, of which myself and Rich will include ourselves in that frame, we'd put Speroni up in that category because 15 years at the club. Just unbelievable. But obviously, I was born in 92, so I probably saw Nigel Martin at the very tail end of his time at Palace before he went on to Everton and Leeds. But I just remember thinking, Jesus wept. How have we survived with people like Scott Flinders, who we nicknamed Butter Flinders for obvious reasons, because I could have sworn he was greasing his gloves with Butterich every time he stepped on the pitch. Terrible goalkeeper. But goalkeepers like Nigel Martin, they're generational goalkeepers, and you don't realize how good they are until they no longer play for you and they play against you. And it was true to fact. His first time coming back to Palace, he wasn't letting nothing past him, and you're just like, this is why I can't stand when this happens, because every time a player comes back to Palace, they haunt us, be it scoring a goal or as a goalkeeper, they pull off a worldie. So it's just like, listen, that's why we love Nigel Martin. He's one of the best to ever play for the club. But, some people would say that Budgie was better or Speroni was better. But me personally, I'm biased towards Speroni. But I definitely put Nigel Martin in that category for sure.
Yeah, you got a comment there from Muncie said Nigel Martin was so underrated. His time at Leeds as well. Was really incredible, to be honest. How close was Karai to making your goalkeepers list?
I think I love Karai for the sort of cult figure and that whole stature of it. But in terms of, because obviously as well, not just for Palace, you mentioned just briefly like what happened at Leeds. Like he is full on in the Leeds part where they go mad with money and they're involved in the Champions League and all that. And he does the same when he goes back to Everton. So it's just a case of like, for certain players, they would offer more than just one club story. Whereas Karai would have been great to have as like a cult hero. And I remember him very well, but like just as a one-off, it wouldn't have been quite as highlighted as the other two.
Yeah, sure. And I like what you've done here, because you've kind of, as you said earlier on, you're picking up players that maybe wouldn't have got the spotlight. Because let's just say if we were to rewrite this book and just focus on like the proper mainstays, Wilfred Zaha. I mean, to be fair, Glenn Murray had a very, very, very important stint with us as well. You got the likes of Jedinak. Andre Moritz was pretty impressive when he played for us as well.
Lassie.
Yeah, D-Mass. So there's quite a few players that easily could have been picked. But on we'll come back to Glenn Murray. I wouldn't do this in order, actually. AJ. Honestly, he was phenomenal for us.
Oh, my God.
Let's talk about Palace first because there's an actual moment regarding his lack of call-up to the England squad, which I want to discuss as well, actually. What struck you as a player? Like, And why did he then come into your thought process for this book?
He was the first player I think I put down under Crystal Palace, in the sense that scored the most amount of goals of any player in a relegated side, and how you can score that many goals and what happened in that side in that season. And also as well, like, not just that, I mentioned earlier about how you get to the Premier League. His story coming into Palace, being sort of discarded by Birmingham just as they'd gone up, and then absolutely proving everyone wrong in that regard. And obviously getting up through the playoffs and that. And it's like, it was West Ham, wasn't it? It was not necessarily supposed to be that way, but it was that way. And it's just a case of like, I like those stories where it's, you know, someone trying to prove something to someone, and obviously, like, he comes into the Premier League and takes it by storm. So,
Brilliant. I'll just put a star by that question there. We'll definitely do the Q&A. Like I said, guys, chuck your questions in for Stuart in the comments. We'll put a star by and we'll come back to them towards the end. He did get an England call up at right wing for about 30 minutes. What's your thoughts on that? Because I think it's something that England used to do really badly.
yeah.
There's still little elements of it now, but players who play on form barely get a look in to the players who are named.
Yeah. And this period as well is the pinnacle of that. You're getting 1,000 call-ups if you play for a certain club. You're getting none if you play for not those clubs in the top four, in the big four. I think as well, one of the things that's fascinating doing the research for this was like how committed AJ was to wanting to play for England. He could have played for Poland because of ancestry and like his grandmother, I think it was. And he just said no. And I think he actually ditched his stag do to go train with England. And like they were all in Poland, and they had, there's no beer on because I think the Pope was visiting, and he went off to England duty because he got the opportunity and he never actually got the chance. And players like that, you know, I'm a big believer in like form should be the way it's picked, but reputations has always been. It's been a case for a while. It's getting better, as you say, but it's just unfortunate that was the way.
Yeah, I mean, for us, he was phenomenal, but I don't think his career really took off after he left us. What would you think may have contributed to that?
It's the injuries, and it's the accumulation of the injuries, and that when he leaves Crystal Palace, there's the Everton situation. And I have spoken to, and I would speak to, like, he was there at a really important time for them, but it just never quite kicked on from there. And obviously that's when the injuries start. And by the time he gets to Fulham and QPR, like that 6 months period where they were buying everyone under Harry Redknapp, and like it's just all downhill from there. The one good thing about it, what I did find out when I was doing it, is that he does come back to Palace and gets like a 30 minutes in a League Cup tie. So at least he got a chance to go out like in front of the people that had actually seen him at his best.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was proper emotional that night. That was a lot, because he was actually meant to sign the season before he came back, but QPR moved the goalpost at the 11th hour and it fell apart. So, but obviously, because Andy Johnson and Wilfried Zaha are cases of players have gone on to so-called bigger and better things, and it hasn't worked out. People funny, but I mean, look, AJ still sung about to this day because of his goals against a particular team in the South Coast, particularly because of a certain game in October of 2002. I remember it because it was just after I turned 10. Battering them 5-0. It was just unheard of, you know, because they came in so confident. Steve Coppell was their manager. And we were thinking, surely he's not going to do the unthinkable and beat us at Selhurst Park with the enemy. No. He said, listen, lads, take the day off. It's okay. It's okay. Take the day off. And Andy Johnson wrote himself into Palace folklore from that day on. But as you say, Stuart, the injuries just killed his career, basically. And that's an accumulation of, I think, a lot of different clubs. Like when he went to QPR, of course, he was, you know, him and Zamora were the old age pensioner strike force. You're thinking, this strike force go back 6-7 years ago, if they both kept fit, would have been lethal for any club, because Zamora and Johnson were famous for being so injury prone. But as you say, it was it was amazing just looking at Andy Johnson coming back and thinking, holy crap, the king is back. You know, because it was almost unheard of. And luckily he didn't do the unthinkable and sign for the enemy. Because we've seen, you know, club legend players, Stuart, you know, as a Liverpool fan, watching Michael Owen, of all people, sign for United, you were like, has he been taking drugs?
And win the league title when Liverpool hadn't.
No, but Rich, you see what I'm saying? Like, certain players will never do the unthinkable. And then the players who do, they completely burn any chance of immortal status. And you look at Steven Gerrard, he nearly went to Chelsea, but had a word with himself and went, no, I can't do that to Liverpool. There's too much invested here for me to go. Michael Owen had no ties to Liverpool. He said, no, forget that. I want the accolades and the trophies. But it was hollow because Michael Owen's not remembered as fondly at Manchester United as he would have been at Liverpool. But you're dead right when you say that, you know, you look at Andy Johnson and you think, why was Darius Vassell getting call-ups to England and Andy Johnson wasn't? Darius Vassell. I could have sworn he got his England ticket off a box of Raisin Wheats or something. Like, do people not remember how crap this guy was? He was at City before City were who they are now. So it's like Vassell got ahead of Johnson. Yeah, Sven and these men were smoking something mad. But yeah, it is what it is.
Absolutely. Lastly on AJ Stewart, this accusation of him diving. Where do you think that was predominantly from? Like, would you say more in his Palace career? Was it thereafter? Or was it always a stigma that's kind of been kept with him?
I felt, well, okay, I'll hold my hands up here and I'll try and, I've been trying to, and I try to, on the whole, not refrain from bias. I like to go towards it because obviously I am biased. I have my biases. So what I'm saying now is just like, in 2004-5, I thought he dived a lot. Right? Obviously, I need to go back and review it, but I don't know. But
yeah,
and then the thing, I think the key part of this is that I don't really care about it. I mean, obviously, when it's affecting your team, you care, and you're like, oh god, how can the referees not say that? But I don't see it as a player issue. I see it as a refereeing issue, and how they sort of make it harder for forwards. Like, you know yourselves, like forwards have to get shot to get a penalty. Like, you just think to yourself, if you make the player have to go down, then you can't be surprised when they go down. And I think what the weird thing about AJ is that he's the only person I can think of that got that reputation and was English. Harry Kane is a little bit of it, but I still think they side on that. Oh, it's a good player. But
it's clever. Yeah, I see what you mean.
So AJ was unique in the sense that he's the first person and maybe one of the only few people I can remember that got attacked for diving while being English. And it always struck me as odd. And it was weird because obviously it comes to a head when Everton have to threaten to take Mourinho to court for accusing him of it. And he backed down very quickly. So it's just, I would say yes from my perspective. But again, I'm thinking way back. I'm going back like 15 years in my head here. So there's probably a few that I'm thinking I could look back at and go, yeah, fine. But I think it's more of a how the game's officiated issue than it is. Because like a dive is against the rules, but so is a leg breaking challenge. And no one cares about a leg breaking challenge. They only care about the diving. They're both the same thing. They're both against the rules. And as far as I'm concerned, AJ, his job is to get points for Crystal Palace. He's doing his job.
Yeah, spot on. The reason I brought that up is because we hear it all the time with Wilf, you know, and the amount of penalties he probably should have got and hasn't because of this so-called diving reputation, considering he's the most foul player in the league. It doesn't add up, you know.
You know what, Rich, you say that, right? Do you remember, what was it, 14-15 away at Chelsea? Hazard falls over the ball, penalty. Yeah. John Terry cleans Zaha out, didn't get anywhere near the ball, dive. Need I say more?
It's crazy. It's crazy. David says here, Richarlison's the king of diving. I'm sure you would agree, even though he's moved.
He's the king of something.
There was a guy that played for Everton that dived against us. Umar Nias, that guy. That guy was a piece of work when it came to diving.
And such. And obviously, we'll say the biggest con artist is Jota.
Oh, yes.
Oh, because of, Why not?
Let's move on. I'm going to leave Punch until last because obviously that's FA Cup final discussion. But Glenn Murray.
Oh, Glenn Murray. Wow.
What striker?
30
Unbelievable.
goals on a free. Thanks a mil for Glenn Murray. You can't beat seeing your arch rival's best striker come to you on a free. They signed Craig McHale-Smith for $2.5 million. Claim he's better. And a season after he joins their arch rivals, he gets them promoted, and they're still clinging on to but Murray wasn't offered as much money. But Poyet said that McHale-Smith was better. I think we know who was right on that one there.
This is it. And stuff. And obviously, reading your extract, it was like, as a footballer, to have all that hard work, have a fantastic season, and miss out on the playoff final through injury.
Ironically, against Brighton as well.
Yeah. You know, absolutely gutting, you know. But he deserved that promotion. Absolutely. And we did as a club. So a similar question to everyone. Now, what made you pick Glenn Murray?
Okay, I have to choose my words very carefully. But basically, Nate mentioned this idea of former strikers coming back to haunt you, and Glenn Murray and his record in Palace and games against Brighton is a record that I've never seen before. I think I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but whatever shirt he was wearing, he was scoring. And everyone knows, whichever club you support, you know this idea of someone coming back to score against you. He was like the epitome of that. And I also liked the idea of how far up the divisions he'd worked. And I remember there's a period where England had the strikers other than Harry Kane, and he could have been the guy. But, you know, he's just one of these guys that's never going to get the credit. And I wanted to give him some credit. And obviously, everything that happened over the course of the years between Palace and Brighton, that just adds spice to it.
A lot of spice. A lot of spice. But either way, like I've just his ability to just draw fouls. For someone who wasn't blessed with pace, he looked like he was the quickest forward in the box. You know, the quickest player in the box. You don't want that ball coming across the box because he's scoring the tap-in.
His intellect was just unreal because you look at his positioning for Balassi or Zaha, they didn't even need to look up and ping the ball. They knew where he was.
And on saying that, Nate, I think he was the perfect catalyst for Zaha and Balassi to just learn. To just learn from. We knew they had the trickery and the skill set and everything. But then because they had Murray there, they were like, right, we need to get this ball into the box as quickly as possible. You know, and I feel they learned from that.
Murray was your textbook set piece beacon.
Yeah.
Because having Dougie Freedman as manager at that time, of course, another legend and a former striker, I think he knew, right, we had the likes of Jermaine Easter, who was a decent championship striker, by no means amazing, by no means brilliant, but he could do a job. We had a couple of other players at the time that were relatively okay, but weren't particularly amazing. We had a lot of youngsters through the academy at the time that were kind of filling the void. But getting Glenn Murray off Brighton, and every Palace fan that saw that, we were like, yo, does he realize what he's doing here? This is not a smart move. Like, it's one thing if we signed, say, Darren Ambrose from Charlton, because Charlton will still to this day, but their fans will bang the drum that Ambrose isn't good. But Ambrose's goal at Man United says otherwise. You know, Paddy McCarthy coming from Charlton to Palace and Mark Hudson going the other way, we came off the better of that deal because we're looking at it going, you want Mark Hudson? Take him. We don't want him. And you look at Glenn Murray and you're thinking, as you said, Stuart, anytime he played for us against Brighton, they were terrified of him because they knew what he could do. And when it came back on our end, we were like, oh, no, we know what's happening. And that first game that we played them in the Prem at Selhurst Park, which is the first game that was won between the two clubs, the minute Murray scored, it was a very eerie silence around the ground because we all knew who just scored. But nobody wanted to actually give him an absolute barracking. If it's any other Brighton player on that pitch, they're getting abuse.
Yeah.
But because it's Glenn Murray, we all realised, listen, he's the reason we're here and we still like this guy. And he didn't celebrate as well, which was big for him.
Very possible.
Thinking, I hate you for what you've just done, but I can't. But now we're now on the receiving end of what we used to love about him, so we just have to take it. But Murray it's just beautiful, Stuart, looking back and going, we got him on a free, not even paid him money for his services. We got him on a Bosman. And it was textbook Dougie Freeman, find a striker that no one else was watching and just watch him rip it in his second season. His first season, he got like 6 goals or something like that. Very low return for a striker. The next season, he had the record until Ivan Toney broke it. So it's like, Murray still got the record. My striker, you know.
Clinical and absolutely brilliant for us, which leads us nicely to Jason Puncheon, who some will call a journeyman, you know, but he's had like massive ups and downs in his career. I think one of his low points, I think, was at Southampton. I thought he didn't really, he wasn't able to express himself as he would have wanted to. His stint at Blackpool was decent. I'm missing another club.
He played for our friends from Bermondsey.
Yeah, his Millwall and such.
Hat-trick on New Year's Day. Of all times to score a hat-trick against us, it just had to be for them.
Literally, but then he joined us and he just made that centre mid position his own, you know. And obviously his biggest moment for us, which led to the worst moment for us at the same time, is scoring in the FA Cup final against Man United, you know. And then we had to see...
I'll never forgive Pardew for that, Rich. I'll never forgive him. No, do you know why I won't forgive him? Because he should have started Puncheon. This is the one thing that peed me off about that game, is he should have started him. When I was looking at the lineup, I was like, why is Puncheon on the bench? Now, obviously, Puncheon had a remarkable come off the bench and score an absolute cracker into the top corner. And so, sadly, it weren't to be. United's quality shone through in the end with a little bit of suspicious refereeing. But I won't get into that. It's Mark Clattenburg. I don't like the guy. But Jason Puncheon, when he first arrived, he was a level up to what we'd known in the Championship. Because remember, 8 seasons of Championship football, near enough 9, we were thinking, listen, let's just enjoy our one season in the Prem like we always do and go back down and just enjoy it. We weren't anticipating second season, third season, and so on and so on. But Puncheon was just, the minute he came in, you could see he had that ability. He'd been there with Southampton and previously Blackpool, and you could see he was trying to elevate the belief in the fan base. He scores that absolute corker away at Cardiff. That's when we realised, wait a minute, nah. We're not having this go relegated business. No, we want to stay up. And Puncheon just personified the football club at that point. An underdog who wasn't really appreciated everywhere he went. He comes back to be the so-called prodigal son, and he just wrote himself into Palace folklore. It tailed off toward the end, sadly, as your book goes into detail, Stuart. But looking back, even before the FA Cup, Puncheon became the focal point of the team alongside Zaha's, the Balassis, the Murrays, the Jennings. And nobody would have predicted that when he first joined. We were thinking, yeah, he'll be a loan signing, half-decent season and go back to Southampton. But it was like, no, Puncheon is one of our own. And there's pictures of him in a Palace kit as a young kid before he went on to Wimbledon.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, like, not many players get very warmly received for having scored a hat-trick against us for Millwall. Not an easy thing to come across. Like, you know, scoring for Millwall, a hat-trick for Millwall, it did us a favour, though, because it sacked George Burley and got Dougie Freeman in. But it's like, don't do that again, please.
Just to set the record straight for Jackie, bless her. No, we're not. I don't care about that show. And stuff. But listen, happy Monday to you, Jackie.
Happy Monday, Jackie. Hope you're well.
No, we're
not here for Love Island. No.
I've got other bits happening later on, and Stuart said this was the best time for him as well. So works best for all parties and such. No. So big up, Chino. What you say, my brother? Hope you're well.
Big up the General. What are you saying, Chino? You good?
And such. So what's your thoughts on Puncheon?
I can start a really random point here, but this is the beauty of writing a book, which is that for good or for bad, Puncheon was in here because I couldn't really figure out a Huddersfield player. And Puncheon, I mean, the thing is as well, is Huddersfield, there were 2 seasons, one good, other very, very bad. But what happened within that is that Puncheon arrives at a very traumatic time for the club. And it's also a case of like, sometimes this is what happens. good things, like bad things happen, even with the best intentions. And then obviously, as I started digging into the story of Punch and being a Palace fan and that whole career and the journey that he took, and it's just like, yeah, you don't get the miracle. The fairy tale doesn't really exist as much as we want to believe. And the hope that it's there is what keeps us watching. And that couple of minutes where he scores at Wembley, he's written his name. That's it. And what that could have been elsewhere as well. Yeah. And it's the case of like, that was the moment I wanted to touch upon. That was the moment that I found myself gravitating towards. So obviously started off as a story about a Huddersfield team that had tried and done their best, but ultimately injuries and other things were getting to the detriment of them. Whereas the real heart of this story was what we all would love to have done when we were kids, which is play for the team that we support and score in the FA Cup.
And it was an incredible moment.
I was
literally
there.
Yeah, same. To think that we were just so close.
I thought he missed. Tell a lie, Richard, because where I was, was the other side of where the ball went in the net. So as I'm seeing the side of Wembley we were on for the semi-final go absolutely mad. Yeah. My side of thinking he's missed until we realise it's a goal because it says it on the LED screens underneath us. So we're like, oh snap, we've scored.
Yeah, this is it and stuff. But it capped off apart from the fact that we obviously lost, and we're not going to go into it because there was many factors that went against us.
Krattenberg.
Yeah, including our dancing gaffer.
Not our dancing gaffer, just a dancing gaffer.
A dancing gaffer, sorry.
You understand?
Yeah, I mean, you should really try and calm the team down, not dance. But anyway.
That's when you're holding the trophy pod. You're 1-0 up in the final with 12 minutes to go.
You know,
I'm glad we lost the final. Do you know that? For that alone, I said, you know what? Okay, cool.
It became a meme.
I know.
Yeah, still is.
It still is. But it just, like I said, it summed up a very, very good season for us, actually, which actually didn't start off too great. And we kind of turned it around pretty much after Christmas, I believe it was. You know,
no, it was the other way. We were brilliant until Christmas.
No, that was it. Sorry, and then we nearly got.
Do you know what it is, Stuart? And we couldn't believe it at this time. We were fifth at Christmas. We were like, "What are we doing in fifth place? What are we doing in fifth place? Wait a second. Stop the press. Whatever about Leicester. What are we doing in fifth place?" And then Balassi gets injured away. Oh God, Stoke away because Chungy scored that absolute banger.
Oh, that's a great goal, actually.
Yeah. Right, Balassi gets injured, and that's when the season just goes through an absolute nosedive. The FA Cup was the only saving grace of that. And, you know, look, as I said earlier, Punchin's time at the club can be summarised, but when he came, we didn't know what we kind of, some of us had remembered, ain't this the guy that scored a hat-trick for Millwall against us in the derby? I don't know if he's going to get that good a reception. He scores a few couple of important goals and plays like a player that wants to show that this club could be in the Premier League. And quite clearly, towards the end of his time at Palace, it tails off massively. But what annoyed a lot of us about it was Frank de Boer's handling of Jason Punchin. He disrespected Jason. I think Punchin was club captain at this point.
Yeah.
Because Sam Allardyce had named him club captain after Scott Dangert gets injured in 16-17. So you're looking at it going, wait a minute. This guy's got Punchin playing right wing back. What is going on? Fair enough, Joel Ward can't play there. That's a given. Ward's a right back and a fairly average right back at that. But watching a player that's personified as one of our best attacking outlets play right wing back, Stuart, it's like, well, did somebody drop Frank de Boer on his head? Because like, what happened? So, but the way you've written about Punchin in the book, because I've been reading it for the last couple of days. You've caught brilliantly the essence of Jason Punchin's time because, as I said, he came in relatively unknown, relatively, uncertain about was he going to fit in, was he going to do well. By the time he left, a lot of us were heartbroken to see him go.
Yeah,
because he personified the level that the club had gone from being we might just stay in the Premier League to no, we are a Premier League club.
Yeah,
and there's unsung heroes in that time like Marouane Chamakh, who, to be fair, awful player when he goes to Arsenal and West Ham, but for us, he personified that. Listen, Chamakh's awful, but we don't need great players at the moment. We just need players that will try, and Chamakh was that. But Punchin was level above that, and you're thinking, what I'd give to have another Jason Punch in this team with Vieira as manager, because you're looking at it and thinking, my God, that'd be a player, because that'd be the fan on the pitch, which is what everybody...
alongside like a Johan Cabaye as well.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
It's just a great fit. It was
A younger Johan Cabaye in this team would sauce.
Absolutely. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to discuss anyway.
Sure.
So we're just going to go over to any of the comments that have been the questions from the chat. So if you do have a question for Stuart, now's the time. We've started a few already. Alan was just asking this regarding Sam Johnson. I believe he's injured. That's all we know at the moment regarding Sam Johnson. He hasn't played. He won't be starting against Arsenal on Friday. Hopefully he can get fit soon, because VG is you know. No worries. No worries, Nate. Question and the next three are from Creambow 66. How far back in terms of players does your book go back?
It's back to the start of the Premier League. There are bits and chapters and sections that do touch upon stuff that happened before 92, 93, but it's the last 30 years. And it's not, like I mentioned it earlier, it's not a case of saying the Premier League's better than what came before or ignores what came before. Because even with Nigel Martin, we're talking about the first ever £1 billion goalkeeper. So it's just the 92, 93 season is used as an easy starting point. And then from there, you can go forward to modern day and perhaps slightly a bit beyond, because there's a couple of players in there that have still yet to fulfill their main potential. Okay.
I know this book has just come out, but I had a thought. As a follow-up, would you do a similar book on managers?
How do I answer this one? Haven't discussed it with anyone, but let's just wink and say that there's definitely in the pipeline.
See, definitely be a good read. And it says another comment as well. Wolf isn't a diver. Facts don't lie. If you're the most fouled player, you go down. Absolutely. I guess before we end it, and honestly, thank you so much for your time and obviously for reaching out as well. Let me put the link in the chat again for where they can buy your book, and it's in the description anyway, so you can always go back for that. You're a Liverpool fan.
Mm-hmm.
Who from the current Palace side, if any, it could be no one, would you take in your Liverpool squad?
Eze in a heartbeat. All day long. Olasey, why not? You've got such a fascinating team right now, and last season was... I mean, okay, I'll ask you this. I'll ask a question then, because my relationship with Roy Hodgson is a horror. I really, really, really do not like that man. Really, I think his reputation as being a nice guy is a joke, right? So last year, when I watched Crystal Palace, having not watched you for the last God knows how many years, I wasn't seeing you week in, week out, but I know what that's like. And it was like a hostage being released, and the freedom with which we were playing. Like, again, by the way, I just like to point out, Patrick Vieira is in this book, and there's a little paragraph at the end of what this team can do and maybe the hope for the future, because going into away games knowing you're not even going to attack, and if you concede, the game's over. Setting up like with a back 10 at home, no matter who you're playing with fear. And that's the opposite of what this Crystal Palace side has been the last 12 months. So obviously there's the whole Conor Gallagher thing, and he would have been incredible. But the players that you've brought in and the players that you've got, I mean, genuinely like what a potential this team has. And Eze, I've been a fan of for a while, and obviously it's a shame with the injury. But Olasey as well, he's got some great hype and a great future ahead of him.
Okay. I believe there's another question from JC. Do you think getting Gini on loan would solve our midfield problems? Wait, are we linked?
If Gini, I think Gini's going to Roma, but if the good thing about Gini Wijnaldum is that he is a big game player, number one, always turns up in the big games, and number two, never got injured. So especially for the system that we played, we needed players that were available a lot, and unfortunately we've got a few that can't necessarily fulfill that. So Gini's a good consistency in terms of scoring goals. He'll get there at the right times, and obviously that those two against Barcelona I'll never forget. But the problem is that he's not for whatever reason, he's not as dynamic domestically as he looks when he's playing in a Holland shirt.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it looks as if it's going to be Roma at this moment in time, guys. I've dropped the link again for the book. Like I said, I'm definitely going to get one for myself, and I'm going to get one. We'll do it as a giveaway from the channel as well. So obviously, watch this space throughout the season. We've dropped the link if anyone wants to come in and actually have their say. No pressure at all whatsoever to do so, by the way. I guess I think we'll just give you this space once again, Stuart, for those who wasn't at the start of the stream, to obviously just reintroduce your book, what the concept is about, and where they can find it.
Sure. It's the Cornerstone Collection. It covers the entire history of the Premier League from the 92-93 season to now. 45 different chapters, 45 different players, their stories, all the connections they have, why they're important, not just for a club, but for the Premier League itself. On the opening day, 92-93, there were 13 foreign players. Gunnar Haller was one of them. He played for Oldham, Leeds, Bradford. All these stories. We mentioned some of the players that we've been talking about throughout this podcast. So, yeah, go and check it out now.
Appreciate that. Oh, big up, JC. JC, the other co-host as well. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I had no idea. My eagle-eye peeling's not stopped yet. But yeah, man, I've literally just gotten home from work.
Yeah.
So I had no idea none of this was happening, but I haven't had a chance to read the book yet, so I'm definitely going to be clicking this link later. But I know it's probably already been covered, but what are the main parts in the book that's covered about Palace, do you think?
Well, we cover the 04-05 and getting back into the Premier League with Andrew Johnson, the FA Cup final with Glenn Murray, not with Glenn Murray, with Jason Punchin, and just the Brighton Palace rivalry in sort of more modern times with Glenn Murray. And obviously there's a bit at the start with both Crystal Palace before the Premier League and that awful playoff final against Leicester with Nigel Martin.
Sweet. Just need to look out for it.
Cheers.
100%, guys. So yeah, I guess we could wrap this up from now. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for having us on.
Oh wait, never mind. Hold on, we got another one here. Yes, Wilf. Bye, Wilf. There it is. This is
gone.
That's always staying there. You know what, Stuart? What I'll do is when Wolf will probably message me his question, and I'll drop you an email or something.
No worries,
man. Point to you and stuff. But thank you once again for obviously coming on, reaching out and stuff. And hey, when it's a Liverpool preview, we might just have you back on.
Fair play. Oh yeah, by the way, you boys are absolutely going to destroy Arsenal at the weekend. I've no doubt about that. That's what they do.
We like you, Stuart.
It's going to happen.
Listen, our start is so tough. we need something from Friday.
Rich, to be fair, we had a fairly tough start a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
We've had, do you know, funny enough, when we've had really worse ends, we've done bits. I think we had to play Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, and beat all of them within like 4 weeks of each other. We're thinking, oh, this is going to be big. You know.
Just lastly, CM saying large up JC, and also saying that Nippon Media working overtime.
Trust me.
And such. I know we're going to have another go at this. Wolf, we good?
Yeah, how you doing, boys? You all right?
Yeah. Sweet. Did you have a question?
Yeah, no, I was just to be honest, I've actually come back to me. I've forgotten about the question. I actually thought it, and then it was coming on there, but I'll come back.
What about
but it's good to. I just want to pop in and say hi. I'm gonna pop out in a second and say yo, and love the show, loving it. More of what I was gonna say was just to back up what you guys are doing at Palace. we're going to beat you on Friday, but like I said in the chat, I actually tip you lot to sneak into Europe. You're going to be a dark horse this season, and a lot of people are not seeing what's happening at Palace. I saw it. It's the same thing I saw under Koppel back in the 80s with Wrighty and Brighty and Salako and all them man there, and it's coming around again. So, you know, being a broccoli boy, I've got a soft spot for you though. But yeah, Stuart, well done in the book, man. Big props on that to go out there and actually do it and make it happen. I hope it goes well, man.
Cheers, man. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Take it easy, boys. Just wanted to pop in and say, yo.
Yeah.
All right, take it easy.
Are you at the game?
Yeah. I was going to call you actually later to see where we're going to meet up, because we're probably going to meet up with Harry as well from Chronicles. But meet up before and afterwards.
We'll definitely work that out.
Yeah. Cool. And thanks for trying with the links before, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah. No problem. Big love, respect. Keep it going, boys.
Appreciate you.
See you later, Will.
Well, they're all coming in now. I tell you what. Henry.
All right.
And sorry, there you go, Sean. Henry, you were asking how much is the book?
Yeah, I wanted to know how much it is.
If you go on to the link that has been shared, or if you just Google Pitch Publishing Cornerstone Collection, you'll get a link from the publishers that sort of goes out to like Smiths and Waterstones and Amazon as well. The ebook is out now for $9.99, but in terms of the actual price of the hardback cover, which I have behind me here, that varies. So just check and see whichever is good for you. Some of them are slightly cheaper than others, so just check them all out. If you go into Pitch Publishing and Cornerstone Collection, or just if you Google that, you'll get to that, and then you'll be able to find it.
Cool.
David Lee's already
$18.99 apparently from David Lee.
So
it is available slightly cheaper than that, but it's like in the links. So yes.
Sweet, wicked. You know what? We'll wrap up here. It's Monday evening. Everyone's got things to do. I will try and get Sean to have his last say before we do go. Sean, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Back again.
Yeah, I don't know what. I guess my internet is acting up. Yeah.
Did yourself.
We're used to it, Sean.
Come on, don't do that. Not now.
Did you have a question for Stuart? Oh no!
He's gone.
We're going. Listen, appreciate you guys. Like, share,
Rich,
subscribe.
1 second. This is a public safety announcement. There is an outbreak of Nipponcron across the internet. Watch your internet connection. Nipponcron is live and active.
It's unbelievable, guys.
Last case reported in Kingston, Jamaica.
Oh my days! See him saying, "You're beefing you. We better." Honestly,
Man, big up, CM. Man.
oh, big up. So before we go, if you obviously want to join in the, I nearly forgot.
Fantasy Premier League.
FPL, that's the code for it. The deadline is the same deadline as the official FPL one, so it'll be Friday around probably about 5 or 6 p.m. And then we'll lock the league. No one else can enter after that. All right. I think I've said bye like 7 times, haven't I?
Yeah.
We're going to be doing a preview for the match on Friday.
The preview will be Thursday evening.
Thursday.
Preview be
You're
Thursday.
going to be at the match as well.
Yep. They're on Friday.
Awesome.
With JC and his tripod.
Let's beat Arsenal.
Operation Rattle Tie. Listen, big up everyone. We out.
See you later.
Adios.
Subscribe.
questions to ask throughout a campaign with the confidence rising. I told JC Nate and Rich that good times are coming, no need for deep diving. Fan Cam's reactions, watch along to the pride of London thriving. The Eagles of South stay flying. Keep your eyes on us, we ain't hiding.